Hey Trailblazers, did you know that when Honkai Star Rail first dropped, the imaginary element was seriously lacking? I mean, there was only one character, our OG Welt. Fast forward a bunch of updates, and now imaginary is one of the most stacked elements in the game, packed with some of the most busted units we've ever seen. And with Rappa's release in version 2.6, we finally have an imaginary character in every single path. Talk about a glow-up. But let's be real. Not every imaginary unit is worth your precious resources. Some of them will carry you through endgame content like a dream, while others, well, they're better left on the bench. So today, we're breaking down the best imaginary characters you should invest in if you want to dominate the toughest battles in Honkai Star Rail. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. Yukong is one of those characters in Honkai Star Rail that had a brief moment of fame before getting overshadowed. When she first dropped, there weren't many solid support options, so naturally she became a go-to pick for boosting your team's damage. But as more 5-star supports entered the game, she started feeling like an investment that just wasn't worth it. The biggest issue? She demands too many resources to make her work efficiently. And let's be honest, most players would rather pour those into someone with long-term viability. Now don't get me wrong, Yukong isn't useless. Her skill is actually pretty solid, boosting her team's ATK for the next 2 turns. And if you can time her ultimate right, she also throws in some crit rate and crit DMG buffs, which can be a game changer. But here's the catch, she has to use her skill constantly, every single turn. That means you'll burn through skill points fast, which can mess with the flow of your team, especially in tough fights where every action matters. She does have some synergy with follow-up attackers since those extra hits don't count as turns, but even then, there are just better support options out there. Unless you're really committed to building around her, she's more of a niche pick than a must-have. Still, if you like her playstyle and don't mind the micromanagement, she can be a fun addition to your team. Just don't expect her to outshine the heavy hitters in the support role. Welt is one of those OG 5-star characters that's been around since the launch of Honkai Star Rail, and for a while, he had a solid spot in the meta. Back then, he was the only imaginary unit available, which made him feel pretty special. His whole thing is slowing down enemies with every attack and sometimes even making them take more damage. Sounds great on paper, right? Well, not exactly. The problem with Welt is that he's kind of stuck in limbo. He's not a full support, and he's not a strong enough damage dealer to be a proper sub-DPS. His utility is nice, but when you compare him to newer characters with stronger kits, he just doesn't bring enough to the table. If you're running a Nihility team, there are usually better options that offer stronger debuffs or more consistent damage. That being said, if you don't have many characters, Welt can still do a decent job. He's not useless, and his slows can be helpful in certain fights. But as the game keeps adding stronger and more specialized units, he's become more of a backup choice rather than a core team member. If you like his playstyle, he's still fun to use, but if you're aiming for efficiency, there are just better picks out there. March 7th getting an imaginary version was definitely a surprise, but a welcome one. Unlike her original preservation kit, this version is all about follow-up attacks and supporting the main DPS. And the best part? You can get her and all her Eidolons for free just by playing through the Xianzhou Luofu continuation quest and event. That makes her a super accessible unit, especially for F2P players looking for solid support without relying on the gacha. Her kit revolves around the Shifu mechanic. Using her skill, she assigns the main DPS as the Shifu, which lets her deal toughness damage to enemies weak to that combat type. It's a cool way to add extra chip damage and help break enemy shields faster. Plus, her Eidolons make her even better, giving extra buffs to both her and the Shifu. So while she's not a full-on support like Harmony units, she still provides some nice utility alongside her own damage. Now, is she a must-pull? Not exactly, but since she's free, there's no reason not to build her if you like her playstyle. She's a great F2P-friendly support, especially for teams that rely on follow-up attacks. If you've been looking for a way to mix up your roster with an imaginary unit that doesn't drain your resources, March 7th's new version is definitely worth trying out. Dr. Ratio will always have a special place in Honkai Star Rail history as the first limited 5-star that was given away for free. If you were playing during version 1.6, chances are you've already got him sitting in your roster. He's a single-target hunt unit with a follow-up attack playstyle, meaning he can dish out extra hits after using his skill and ultimate. Sounds great, right? Well, there's a catch. To really get the most out of Dr. Radio, you need to stack debuffs on enemies. The more debuffs they have, the more likely he is to trigger his follow-up attacks. That means he works best in a nihility-heavy team, where characters are constantly weakening opponents. But even then, his single-target focus makes him feel a little out of place in an AoE-heavy meta. When enemies are swarming the battlefield, he can feel like he's chipping away at one enemy while the rest keep attacking. That being said, he's still a strong unit, especially in modes like Memory of Chaos, where single-target burst damage shines. If you've got the right setup to support him, he can put in some serious work. And hey, considering he was a free 5-star, he's a pretty solid option for anyone looking to add a reliable hunt unit to their team. Danhung Imbibitor Lunai made a huge impact when he first dropped in Honkai Star Rail, instantly becoming one of the most powerful DPS characters in the game. His insane damage output and self-buffing capabilities put him way ahead of the competition at the time. Of course, as new powerhouses entered the game, that initial dominance faded a bit. But make no mistake, he's still one of the best main DPS choices out there. What makes him so strong is his ability to stack buffs on himself, boosting both his overall DMG and crit DMG. This lets him dish out ridiculous amounts of damage, especially if he's paired with top-tier supports like Sparkle and Ting Yun. If you set him up properly, you're looking at 200,000 plus damage per turn, making him an absolute monster in tough fights. However, his skill point usage can be a bit demanding, so managing your team's economy is key to keeping him at his peak. If you're running a team built around him, he'll carry you through pretty much anything, from Simulated Universe to Memory of Chaos. Even with newer DPS options available, Imbibitor Lunai still holds his ground as a top-tier pick. If you love flashy, high-damage characters that can turn battles into highlight reels, he's definitely worth investing in. Healers are always in high demand in Honkai Star Rail, especially if you're tackling endgame content like Memory of Chaos. Since you usually need at least 2 sustain units for tough fights, Luocha naturally stands out as a top-tier pick. Unlike some other healers who require you to use their turn for support, Luocha's kit is all about automatic healing, making him incredibly efficient. His skill lets him heal an ally while also removing a debuff, with priority given to crowd control effects. But what really makes him shine is his passive healing. Every 2 turns, if a teammate drops below 50% HP, his skill automatically activates without costing anything. On top of that, his ultimate creates a field that continuously heals allies whenever they attack, giving your team a steady stream of sustain without interrupting their damage output. All of this makes Luocha one of the most flexible and reliable sustainers in the game. Whether you're running a hypercarry team or just need a strong, independent healer, he's got you covered. He keeps your team alive without needing constant micromanagement, making battles smoother and more efficient. If you manage to pull him, congratulations! You've got one of the best healers Honkai Star Rail has to offer. Erudition characters haven't always been at the top of Honkai Star Rail's meta, but Rappa is one of the few that really shook things up. She's a break DPS, meaning her entire playstyle revolves around shredding enemy toughness and dealing massive break damage once their shields are down. If the enemies have an imaginary weakness, she absolutely demolishes them, making fights feel way easier. One of the biggest perks of playing a break-based character is that you get one of her best supports for free, Asta. Since break effect scales differently than traditional crit builds, you don't have to stress about landing perfect crit stats on her gear. Instead, you just focus on stacking break effect and watch her chain explosions do the work. That said, if your break effect rolls are bad, you might struggle to get her to full power. Overall, Rappa is a fantastic unit if you enjoy shield-shattering gameplay and massive break-based nukes. She might not be the most conventional DPS, but in the right setup she can completely disrupt enemy formations and control the battlefield like no other. If you're tired of traditional crit-based builds and want something fresh, she's definitely worth trying out. Sunday might be an imaginary character in Honkai Star Rail, but you won't really notice that while playing him because he's all about buffing your main DPS rather than dealing damage himself. His kit is built around making your carry as strong as possible, and he does this by boosting crit DMG, other key stats, and even giving them an instant turn. That turn advancement is what makes Sunday truly special. When you use his skill on an ally, they immediately get to act again, and if they have a summon, their summon gets a turn too. This makes him an amazing pick for teams that rely on remembrance units, but honestly, you can throw him into almost any setup and still get huge value. Plus, his ultimate provides energy regeneration, letting your DPS fire off their strongest attacks even faster. If you're looking for a universal support that can make your strongest unit even stronger, Sunday is easily one of the best picks in the game. Whether you're running him with a hyper carry or just need a bit more speed and sustain, he fits into almost any team and keeps the pressure on your enemies the entire fight. If you're looking for the best support for break-based DPS units, then Harmony Trailblazer is a must-have in Honkai Star Rail. You can unlock them by progressing through the Penacony arc, or if you're new, you might even get them early through the events section. No matter when you pick them up, one thing is certain: this is one of the best free units in the game. Unlike most Harmony characters, Trailblazer isn't just about buffing teammates. They actually contribute solid toughness DMG themselves. But their real strength lies in their ultimate, which lets every party member deal Super Break DMG when hitting a weakness-broken enemy. This is game-changing because it means you don't need a full break-focused team to take advantage of the mechanic. Any character can benefit from it. This makes Harmony Trailblazer an insanely versatile unit. Whether you're running a break-focused team or just want to squeeze out more damage from your regular DPS, they fit into almost any lineup. If you haven't built them yet, now's the time. They're easily one of the strongest free supports in Honkai Star Rail. Aventurine is a prime example of why preventing damage is often better than healing it back. While healers are great for sustaining the team, Aventurine takes a different approach. He excels at shielding your team from damage in the first place. His skill and follow-up attacks allow him to create tank-like shields for all allies, keeping them protected throughout the battle. This makes him an amazing pick for any team that needs extra durability, especially when facing tougher opponents. But Aventurine doesn't just focus on shields. His ultimate can also increase the crit DMG taken by a specific enemy, which can significantly amplify your team's offensive potential. On top of that, he provides a ton of extra supportive abilities that make him ideal for follow-up teams. For example, if you've got Robin in your squad, Aventurine's follow-up attacks can help her recharge her energy more efficiently, giving her the ability to dish out more damage and control the fight. Overall, Aventurine is one of the most versatile preservation units you can have in Honkai Star Rail. Not only does he provide solid protection for your team, but he also helps boost your overall damage with his utility-focused kit. If you want to keep your team safe and keep the pressure on your enemies, he's an incredible choice. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.